Welcome to the Kodaris Community Show with your hosts, Tony and Margaret, and the occasional friend stopping by. This is the podcast where we explore how innovation and technology is reshaping distribution and the supply chain as a whole. Discover how technology is making companies more efficient and profitable, making their customers happier, and is paving the way for our future. Join us for insights from industry experts, interviews with innovators, and actionable ideas to stay ahead in our rapidly evolving world. In this episode, Logan Smith joins us from Parksite, where he is a solutions architect, to talk with us about the challenges and opportunities that distributors have with payments. Here's Logan giving us a little background about himself.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've been working with the Infor product for 10 years now, going on 11. Started as a customer implementing the on-premise solution of Infor, so distribution SXE. It was the graphical environment and the web environment. So it was actually the Silverlight version, which has been deprecated and replaced with the HTML5. That customer was a heavy user of credit cards, more of a retail operation than a distribution operation. So definitely got my hands dirty with credit cards early and often. Probably the number one thing I spent the 3 years with them working on was trying to optimize their credit cards. Once I kind of rolled out that whole software, there wasn't really a permanent position at that location or that company. So I took a job with Infor and was a consultant for 5 years. My expertise in credit cards continued, meaning I was one of the people that was responsible for dealing with Infor's credit card integrations when customers had issues, troubleshooting. I have credit card devices that I have in my office used to set up. Never wanted them, still don't want them, but for some reason it keeps coming around because of the importance, right? And then I find myself after 5 years at N4 looking for the next kind of challenge, wanting to get back into a business, digging deeper into solutions. And that led me to where I am today at Parksite as a solutions architect. Yeah, my background is I have an education in project management. I'm PMP certified, and I have a huge appreciation. My specialty when I got out of college was quality improvement methodologies. So like Lean Six Sigma was my specialty. So a lot of things I do today, it's grounded in Lean Six Sigma or some type of quality improvement.
So I think your past experience where you always seem never to get away from the vein of where we're working in my previous life and banking integrations and expenses and payments and various things is full circle now that we're also a fintech company as well as a distribution commerce company.
There's a certain gravity to your life's work that just always kind of brings you back, right?
Sucks you back no matter how you try to escape it, it sucks you back.
Absolutely. I told myself in college I would never work in IT, and I have pretty much only worked in IT. So I spent 4 years denying it, saying, no, I'm not IT, I'm just business consulting. And yeah, now I've accepted it. I'm IT.
So one of the things we did, and we talked about, to your point on payments, I think obviously payments are critical in any business, right? Collecting your money. However, for customers, that it's really become an experience now. How easy can we make it? How fast can we make it? It's almost, it was to the point where using Visa, MasterCard was like the easy button versus cash. And then the world went to, maybe I could also do that on my phone now. To I could swipe, to I could insert the chip. And now I go to Starbucks every morning, scan my barcode. Why do I need a card? Yes, I could tap my phone, but not all terminals support them. And it's funny in distribution, it was a very slow, and even today, a very slow adoption process to the latest and greatest. Well, in the U.S., actually, international, Australia, people are way ahead of us. The U.S. itself, but even in parts of the U.S., it's been a slow adoption and distribution, mostly because industrial distribution hasn't needed it, or they felt they didn't need it. But I think it's becoming a demand now. The other thing with typical financial services companies, whether you go into your bank and to open an account, and you might be a successful person running a business, and it's still going to take you 4 months to open a bank account because you have to prove who you are, right? And I think accepting payments and the whole financial ecosystem has just also been very difficult to deal with, which is one reason Kodaris got into payments. I had no intention of necessarily doing it, but it just became such a pain point of dealing with being the go-between to the payment companies or software to the payment companies to back. And I'm like, I know how to do this. We're just going to do something. And Kodaris took payments for years, and then we finally decided to do integrated payments in CSD, and we're expanding that obviously to other ERPs. But it's interesting the challenge of now being in another software, getting the integration done, and also understanding the ins and outs. So let's talk about when we approached you. I almost forget when we started brainstorming and said we're going to do this, and I think you just offered to help, said you knew it, if you remember.
Absolutely. Of course, I absolutely remember because it was really perfect timing. So when I started at Parksite, one of the first things I asked is, do we have a credit card integration? We obviously take credit cards, and the answer was no. That they reviewed it a few years prior when they were launching, when they had consultants on site, and they didn't like it. They didn't like the work that was involved, the cost that was involved. It just wasn't for them. So I kind of dropped the idea at that point. I had plenty on my plate. Fast forward to almost a year ago, maybe 9 months, when we needed a customer payment portal, and Kodaris was the solution that we chose. You guys showed the request for payment feature, being able to do a COD order within the portal that then goes in and tenders it within CSD, and that re-sparked that desire to get off of our current process. So I saw opportunity there. It's like, okay, so you're already doing the tendering in CSD. You're so close to doing the rest of it. We had kind of a general conversation at one of the conferences we've been together, and it was a few months later, you're like, hey, so we have a credit card integration with CSD. How do you feel about testing this out? And it was absolutely a no-brainer. The team kind of had this moment where they realized they needed to do something as well, so it all really came out at the same time. Previously, we were taking credit card payments in I think 3 separate merchants. So our Atlantic branches were doing one, and our Parksite branches were doing another, and we had like a backup. So it wasn't a clean process. It wasn't a good process. It was very easy to sell them, especially after the payment portal went so well. They're like, yeah, let's give it a try, see what happens. And that's really how it started.
Yeah, what I appreciated was, as we know, Kodaris works with customers on all projects. So we did develop, true to our process, kind of an MVP product of the processing. We knew the processes get really, I want to say down and dirty, but really the rubber meets the road when you get into business and every use case. So it was super helpful that you kind of knew every use case, every flow. Your past experience and working with that with Infor was great, to really put it through all the paces. But I do like also the thought of, and we talk about this with customers, right? Making your processes better with Kodaris. We just don't want to replace. We want to make them better, unify them. So unifying that entire process across Parksite. But then, some of the cool stuff we're talking about now which is kind of crazy for the payment space. How do we innovate together? How do we do more? How do we make this more streamlined? Because really, the faster and easier and the more automated payments is not only good for the customer, good for operations, good for cost. Cost on processing those payments, applying those payments, accounting those payments. I think that's one area people really underestimate. Oh, well, we take the payment, we put the card machine out there. It takes 9 steps to make sure that payment's accounted for.
Yep.
But and everybody hates paying the credit card fees. But what are the operational fees or taxes you're paying every single time you process a payment just to collect your money? I think that's an ROI piece that a lot of people don't realize when they're even choosing a payment processing, because everything's about margin uh, on the payment processing or what the fees are. And we get so angry at the banks and Visa for charging those fees, but at the same time, we don't. I feel sometimes we don't. Our customers, distributors, miss the point of. I'm also choosing a processor. What are my fees operationally to make and apply this payment, take it through the process? I don't know if you have thoughts on that because you've worked in this and seen it, but when you're talking about three processors, three mids, and you're not only talking about recording, but reconciling and tracking and all those things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think one of my first questions to you was, how do I reconcile? Because in the past, that was one of the number one complaints that I had within our department. Uh, it's can be so difficult when you're trying to match the bank to your payment processor to what you tendered in CSD. Um, and I remember your response saying, the data's all there. We can like pipe that into the data lake. You can create a report. We can work with you to create a report. Like reconciliation will be easy. Like you'll be able to reconcile. Um, of course, I had my doubts because uh, payment processors in my past experience, they're rigid, right? So when you work with kind of an existing framework, this is what it is. This is how you set it up. We don't really change anything. There might be a few configuration options, but it is what it is. They're going to pipe it in there and they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to give you an existing report that's out of box and they're going to wish you luck. So the fact that Kodaris was flexible and it's like we can give you whatever you need to reconcile. You just have to determine. Set me all the way back to I don't know what I need because I don't think I've ever had the option to determine what the best solution was. So that kind of opened my eyes to, okay, so if we can create some settlement reports together and we can streamline that process, then what else can we keep improving upon? Uh, which of course just gets those gears turning. So, and was a big impact on selling it to the Parksite accounting team with those three mids that are not, they're not mids, three different payment processors. The reconciliation takes way too long. The different fee structures, the different how they're doing surcharges. Every single one of those has to be taken into account when they're balancing and reconciling. So when Kodaris came forward and was like, we'll be the processor, we can do it all, we'll make the fee structure more simplified. Um, it was all such a huge impact as far as getting our payments quickly, reconciling, and not spending time on something that doesn't add value to the business. Because let's be honest, collecting money doesn't move the needle. It's not what gets people excited. It's the blocking and tackling of a business. It's necessary. It's so important, but normally top brass doesn't care about it as much as, well, how does it drive sales? It's like, well, it doesn't, but it's still important, very important.
I think there's been an interesting common theme in a couple of these episodes about the idea of business processes that are formed around, to your point, Logan, rigid software or rigid process that you have to cobble together these solutions, these internal business processes, versus taking this step to almost demand that the technology that you use actually works with an efficient business process of your creation.
Absolutely.
It's interesting because it's not even distributors. I follow different startups still and things out of Silicon Valley, and I roll my eyes when I see a young startup. Maybe they got 5 people, they got money, and they're bragging about how they have all these tools that they're doing so many things, and they're only using 14 different tools to run a 5-person business, right? It's like insane. Yeah, but when you're a distributor and you're managing warehouses, trucks, payments, cash flow, front counters, inventory, um, all those things add up, and hey, we just simplified the process, we simplified the fee structure, we simplified the reconciliation, which then also in the world of the digital world where we need to be allows for automation, allows for real-time exception handling, allows for all those different things, right? And I think that's where, to your point, the payments businesses miss it because they operate at scale to return money to their massive investors. They don't have the time, the bandwidth. It's not profitable for them to say, "Oh, your reconciliation is hard. Let me help you fix that." Right?
Yep.
And I think that's also where Kodaris has partnered with innovative payment providers to go back and say, "We need X from you." And what's cool is, I because now the payments business is so a commodity, right? It's a huge global commodity. Is when you do find those mid-market players who are publicly traded, process billions, but they're looking for ways to go against the ultra big payment companies. And there's someone like us who's working with distributors, and we go to them and we say, well, yeah, we process sizable amounts of money, not Goliath, but we can get you more if you help us build the X feature so we can do X for our customers. It's something that's also missing when you're looking at, oh, should we stay with this bank who does, in the top 5 banks in the world, and like they're not going to pay attention to you. They don't care, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Yep.
but then it affects your downline business. People talk about, sometimes distributors talk about staying with their credit lines. Their bank has their credit line, so they wanna bundle it because that's what the bank's telling them. But they're also discounting all the other costs they're gonna bear for staying there. Right. So it's an interesting dynamic how we perceive as human beings the value, because people are talking the value, but in our own company, sometimes we're not aware of the cost and hidden costs and expenses of a lot what we're doing every single day.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just kind of brushed under as the cost of doing business versus highlighted and tried to streamline or improve.
Yeah, like, is that truly have to be the line item of the cost of doing business?
Absolutely. It shouldn't be. I mean, I think the challenge is the larger the business, especially technology, they kind of rest on their laurels. They've released something, people are using it, people don't like change, so they don't innovate as much. That's what brought me to Kodaris in the first place. It's what brought Parksite to Kodaris was the innovation. It's going to continue to improve. Like you're investing in the product. From a business perspective, that's huge. Like you want to keep growing what's there, improving upon what's there, instead of just saying, we have a good product, here it is, we're going to just run with it. So many larger technology companies, they find a solution, they implement a solution, and that's it. They've done it. They've done their R&D, they've done their development, they've released it to the public, they have a client base that doesn't likely want to change. So they do the bare minimum to keep their clients without really continuing the innovation because they've made it. So big difference as far as like a consumer perspective or from a company perspective, looking at a software that wants to keep pushing that envelope to help businesses realize those unrealized gains.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because sometimes on the flip side, and look, we know and we preach it, right? We're here because our customers are here. They're keeping us on the cutting edge. We're helping them stay on the cutting edge. At times, I'll say, as we're scaling, sometimes it's like, can we really solve all the world's problems? It's great. I love it, but some days you're like, okay.
These are too many problems.
It's the boil the ocean,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't fix everything, but it also doesn't mean that you don't want to to take a look at it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge difference of going into a conversation knowing that you might evaluate it as a serious potential versus going into a conversation with a larger provider that's just right away that they have no interest in changing it. I'm not a multi-billion-dollar company, so they're not. It doesn't move their needle. They don't care. Every suggestion conversation that we've had, I feel like Tony's brain's going, can I make this work? Does it make sense to make this work? And where do I fit it in with everything else we're doing? So feeling heard is important, especially again in the payment space where I'm so used to just being ignored. Like the amount of emails I've sent and questions to payment providers saying, "Can we do this? Can I get this?" and just being left on red or a simple response of no. Knowing that you're at least thinking about it, does it make sense? Is it a dumb request? Uh, Means that we can continue trying to make things better.
What I've noticed the last 11 years as we've done this is sometimes you think about something, you say, could we do this? And it's like, that'd be cool. But right now I don't see a path. But there's been lots of times where all of a sudden 3 years later you're like, oh, we could do that now. I remember now we have enough other stuff built around that we could totally do that. And it's a small jump. Right. So as technology evolves so much. And I think that's what's interesting because I always tell my team, sometimes I think about features that I know aren't going to be there for 3 years, but let's put them out there. Let's write the data on them, how they would work, how they would, because it's an incremental process to get to certain places. And I think that's some of the things, thinking about that, where are we going with payments? Where are we innovating? I think um, the payment link thing is cool. We recently rolled out real time, AI, third party fraud detection, but baking that back into the ERP. Some of the things I think on next frontier is, simplified POS and payments for retail establishments. You could do CSD, but can you do like almost a grocery store type scan, swipe, self checkout? Uh, can you do driver delivery, mobile app, collect it? You're a driver anyway. It's just like we all use Uber today. Like it's there, right? Can you
Hmm.
do uh, even at your retail locations, barcode scan payments like Starbucks? I mean, technically the technology is close for that. There's some new technology out there I think would be really cool around fraud where um, and the payment ecosystem has it. It's just not readily deployable yet, but can you do, I'm a consumer, I'm checking out on your website, and instead of typing my card number in, I'm going to get a mobile app thing and I'm going to tap my card on my own phone in your mobile app and pay so you know that that person's holding the card. I mean, that would be really cool and cut down on fraud a lot, I think. So I don't know if you have other ideas, Logan, but I think with all that, that's the point of acceptance, right? And then to your point, and I tried to map it out once, and I think we have like 8 or 9 different payment flows or something like that. Um,
I could see that like
uh,
easily. It seems like there would be more. Just the different opportunities. And as far as like future innovation, like the mind is always going. There's so much that I think can be improved, especially in the distribution sphere. Like retail has forced to adapt because there's big players that force the adaptation. Walmart was a huge driving factor in changes within the market. A lot of the smaller uh, local or regional competitors had to adapt a lot of the practices for payments and accepting payments because Walmart was driving a lot of that. Uh, Come to find out, it's funny now that they've driven a lot of these changes. Walmart is one of the only places I go now that doesn't accept tap pay. And it's like you drove a lot of these changes in this environment for retail, and now you're behind. And that kind of shows that back to resting on your laurels. You've spent the money, you developed, you drove an entire industry forward, and they're just like, not going to invest any further, not going to keep improving. But I think earlier you brought abroad as a great example. The U.S. is so far behind in payments. It was 8 years ago, I think, where the US finally pretty much required the acceptance of chip, which had already been pretty much deprecated everywhere else.
Right.
I remember the first time I went to Canada and I handed them my card and they just kept tapping it against a machine. And I'm like, well, I don't know what you guys are doing. I'm so confused. They're like, it's not working. And I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. And they look at the card and there's no icon on it. And they're like, this doesn't have tap. I'm like, I still don't know what tap is. They're like, oh, I'm going to have to get a different reader. And I'm like, I just want to run my card. Swipe it.
It's like discovering tools for the first time and just like banging them around, you know?
It was so enlightening and frustrating because once we did get it, it's like, this is so much easier and convenient. And then it makes me think as a technology person who just enjoys it, what else is out there that the US is not using because of our like archaic regulations and lack of forced improvement. So, no,
Last year I was in Europe and I went to Starbucks, and or everywhere you went, people were tapping their phones,
yep.
and you didn't see anybody get out a card out of their wallet.
Oh yeah.
And it's amazing how I don't, even if you have that capability in the U.S., U.S. consumers don't even have that mindset because somehow the market, we've never been educated that this is the future way to pay. And I do think it's partially because it's probably not accepted everywhere, so you're worried it won't happen,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, you don't want to be the person that's just slamming your phone on the reader.
I think it's exciting. I mean, there's opportunities, like you said, everywhere to
Yep.
improve that, not only from the payment rails, but the POS system. Another feature I've had the idea for a while, going back a few years, is, and in the construction business, as you know, sometimes I'm on a job site and I need to send a runner in to pick something up, pick up
Hmm.
a material, and I don't want that person carrying my card or paying, and so I might tell them just use the card on file if if you need to. Um, but then there's the fraud, right? The potential of fraud. How do you know that person sent that person in? You're releasing the material to. I've always thought it'd be interesting. I think we're closer than ever now. Could be cool is the person at Parksite or the distributor says, "Oh, so and so is here to pick up material." Um, Clicks a button, and the supervisor gets the tap to pay on his phone. Hey,
Nice.
we're gonna release this, right? Can you just click this button like a two-factor auth to let us know to release the material to so and so? Kind of that third leg, all fully integrated between the person coming in, the distributor, the supervisor on the job site. Like we have all that pretty much there, 85% there. It'd be interesting, you know, when the market demands that, or as we get closer. We thought about that like 3 or 4 years ago, but we didn't have all the rails in place. But now I think it's getting closer.
Logan, that's our unofficial mascot inside of Kodaris is we've got that. It's like 85% there.
Yeah, and that last 10 to 15% is definitely always the easy part. And
Oh
Well,
yeah,
innovation,
right.
yeah, yeah. Getting it over that last 15, that's the easy part. So,
you need a good customer to pilot it with you. That's always the challenge, right?
absolutely. It leans into I've worked with a lot of companies that have that same issue, like a signer's list, right? The contractor has one government issued card or one P card. Um, they're not going to give it to an employee to do a gopher run to go grab some extra materials. Uh, I mean, they do that, but they shouldn't, right? That card should be on file already. So when they get there, they shouldn't just run the card. There should be that workflow management that does some type of two-factor and have a fallback, right? So it sends it off to the manager. It pops up on their screen. So and so is at this location. Do you authorize this amount? They click yes or no. If they say yes, great. If it times out, it comes back and it gives them a secondary option. Maybe you can send another link or follow up. But I love workflows that uh, have defined processes, like a standard operating procedure you can follow, versus in this case, do this, maybe do this. Here's a note, call this guy to authorize. Setting that all up automatically behind the scenes to have that workflow management is definitely a really neat innovation.
The other thing I've dreamed up, which we're a little ways from, but since we're talking about innovation, we talked about reconciliation, the cost of transactions. One of the things we we've been thinking about, I've been thinking about is, clearing those transactions. But then and again, I come from the banking world, so if you had integrated banking where your banking transactions are also coming in to Kodaris, so you have the point of payment acceptance, all the invoices, the application, and then you have, the amount batched out every day, the amount going to the bank, the card types, and you bring those banking deposits back in. Then you auto reconcile. Say, yep, everything matches, no need for a human to look until you see an exception or variance. And then you can report. How cool would that be from an accounting standpoint to do the full cycle for AI, robotic, whatever, right? I mean, whatever you want to call it, how cool would that be to just say the money's being collected, it's moving, it's all of those different things.
Absolutely. Sign me up today. Reconciliation is by far one of the biggest pain points in credit card processing, especially once you get into an integrated system like Infor CSD. Uh, obviously to get technical, there's one-time sales and one-time authorizations, and those one-time authorizations can absolutely cause hours and hours of frustration from credit card reconciliation process, because in CSD they may show tender they're hitting a general ledger, so it kind of shows that money somewhere, but that order may not be approved or completed for months, which leaves that authorization out there, and there's nothing that really tells you. So you've got this payment where you've collected from a customer in a back order that's months old that now you can't collect on. And there's nothing that just warns you that says, hey, you need to do something about this. It's going to be a challenge to collect later. Having some type of auto reconciliation that shows you what's settled and the order number in a three-way match between the bank, the payment processor, and CSD will expedite that like massively, because you could still see those payments as a two-way. It would be in Kodaris, it'd be the MX, but CSD wouldn't show the money. That immediately can flag you, create a workflow that says do this, take an action because of this. Instead of having the first hour of your job every day is to figure out what actions do I need to take, running custom reports that are different between every company. So I dream of having a reconciliation center for credit cards. I lived vicariously through my accounting team every day. My first job that would call, and they would spend days, multiple employees days at the end of every month reconciling their credit card transactions, and the frustration that just emitted from their little office. I'd never wanted to go in there because I knew they were going to be mad at me. And I never solved the problem because I didn't have a willing participant on the technology side to invest in that or to look at that as even a potential. They're just like, we have a report. Here's your report. We can send it to you daily. What you do from there is up to you. And it's like, well, there's only so much you can do on your own without technology or a company that is willing to continue pushing that. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the GL is a whole nother thing. So yeah, that's a fourth leg on that chair, right? But I also think I think all of this, as we develop technology with customers, it also leads to process,
Mhm.
SOP, standardized processes drive. I mean, people talk about AI, and we talk about that. It takes good data, good processes to drive even AI automation. Um, and I think all that, though, getting down and sometimes it's like, oh, well, we could build something, but you might have to change this process and change this process to make sure we can do X with the technology, right? And I think that's also how funny it is in many companies. The technology is there, or we provide things out of the box that are there that other companies are using to drive that ROI. But it's like, oh, well, that's not how we do it. We can't change our process. And
Absolutely.
so change management for humans, there's such a human factor in everything we do. Um, because it's not, you know, we try to design very flexible workflows and things, but at some point the technology, and we've had this, oh, well, there's four ship twos. Well, how does the sales rep know which one to pick? I don't know. He just knows.
Hmm.
Like, well, the machine can't just
You
know.
can't train AI on that business process.
Yup.
Yeah, what piece of data? Well,
Random.
tell people how does a human decide this? Because that's what we're building, right? I mean,
Why? Like that is the most powerful question you can ask, right? It's like, why do you do it that way? And if they can't answer that, they're just like, I was taught this way, I've done it this way, it's how we do it here. Then you ask why again. Like you keep going down that path of get them to admit, like, this isn't necessarily a good process. It's just the process we do today. And once someone acknowledges that, that's when you have that room to grow as a company, like as a department or a process. When I started at Parksite, I know one of my very first questions I had for uh, the person hiring me was, is this a culture that's willing to accept change? Because
Mm.
uh, I like change. It's fundamental to my position and it's fundamental to how I enjoy working. So I want to constantly be changing something. Now, change for the sake of change isn't good, but you still want to be looking at that and have a culture that accepts it. And their answer was, we love change. I'm like, okay, sure. Everyone says that. That's easy to say from a high
yeah,
level when your change doesn't actually come through. But it's been great working with Parkside because they understand that change is necessary, that to make improvements, sometimes there is a step backwards to take two steps forward, um, and that processes are not permanent. Just because you do it today one way. I loved your reference earlier about uh, you may have a solution to something, but the technology or the current technology doesn't support it. Like maybe you don't have the full thing, but you've still mentally prepared for that down the line. Uh, that's something that I advocate for in ours is future development. If someone says, "Hey, can we do this?" My answer isn't no, not at all. It's not today. Like as far as I know, what we have access to, our tools, our abilities, we can't do that today. But in 6 months, I will reach back out to you. I'll check it. Has something changed? Has a new tool been developed? What is Kodaris doing that I can now leverage? And it's amazing how quick technology changes that you can then go back and say, yeah, we can now do that. Like something has opened up. There is a new tool. There is a new path forward. But so many people do it once. They say, nope, can't do it. And then it goes into the rubbish bin. No one brings it up until that employee retires and the next one comes in and says, why are we doing this? And then there is a software or a technology or something out there that's been innovated and it's been there for months or years, and no one has looked. No one's continuing to look for that.
That's interesting to think about. Maybe that's how business processes become so codified, is that if the answer is no, instead of not today, but let's make sure we're keeping our eye on it in the future. I was trying to think about that, about business process as a religion. I'm like, we're not changing it. This is how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony has been very vocal internally at Kodaris of being allergic to that statement of this is how we do it, or I used to do it at my previous company this way, so this is how we should do it. There's ultimate suspicion automatically when those words exit anyone's mouths, and I was trying to think about what it could be, and I do think that that answer of like a hard no stops even the person asking that would be willing to think up, hey, could we do it differently? They're probably like, well, we can never do anything differently, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. One of the biggest challenges when we hire senior people, it's just human nature. Okay, I'm going to do this, and if the answer is because at my previous company, this is how we did it, I'm like, the answer is no. It's like you haven't heard it yet. I'm like, I want to hear, okay, we're doing this and we're doing this, so here's a good solution because we have this challenge and this will solve that problem. Because if we're always just repeating based on experience, then you're not thinking, we're not embracing the future, we're not changing. And coming from, the startup world in Silicon Valley and some experience there, it's everything's changed. You're a totally different company every 3 months while you're scaling, right?
Yeah.
It's just there is only one constant. That's tomorrow is going to be different than it is today, different problems, and you have to be embracing it, a fire hose of change constantly. But not a lot of people have lived through that, very small percentage of the population. So people think, well, this is the way we've always done it, or this is how the market works. But you don't build disruption by doing it the way the market does it. You do it by changing how the market does it. And so I am allergic to that because I feel the minute we say, well, this is how it's done, we're going to become stale and we're going to lose. And I'm always pushing. And I remember when you were talking about, it's not just in distribution. I was at one of the huge social media companies about, I don't know, 15 years ago, in my prior expense reporting days. And they said, we have to have these 3 fields on our every report. And I mean, this was one of the massive global companies. I remember as 8 accounts are on the table. We're walking through what their requirements are, and I'm like, okay, but just explain to me. I get field 1, fields 2 and 3. What do you do with those? Like, I just need to understand because I don't understand how those connect to anything. And so they went around the table. At the end, the controller looks at me and says, I guess we don't need them. We don't even know why we need them. But
Yeah.
that's the way accountants did it there, right? That's just, and so it's us as humans, we always is comfortable rely on our experience instead of saying, what's in front of me? What am I trying to solve? How am I going to navigate this? Where's my goal 2 years out? Is this contributing that? But the more you do that, I think the more you become allergic to the past is how we did it, because now your new comfort level is, if it's not changing, then something's wrong, right? It's
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah. I value change obviously a lot, and I still understand that not everyone is as comfortable with change. So it's about finding the happy medium between not stagnating as a business, but not constantly moving to where your employees are in a state of panic because their job is too flexible. Some groups are fine with that flexibility, and I find accountants are not. Accountants,
You're
I
like, they're
mean,
great with it, right?
yeah, accounting, they have very set rules. Like they are the group that is the most likely to have a standard operating procedure and they follow it. Because there's so many regulations around it, right? There's so many things you can and can't do as an accountant that having policies, procedures, and sets of instructions is required. So when you try to propose changes, a lot of times accounting they have reservations about it because they've been doing something so long and so consistent. Um, so when you do implement something for accounting, I find that you have to really sell them on the ROI, the ease of how it affects their business, and then of course compliance. So those things are so important in the payment space or in the accounting space in general, is just ensuring that you do those things. So which we accomplished. I mean, that with the our payment portal and the credit card integration, it was easy to sell. I didn't even have to sell it to my team because it kind of sold itself. It met those things. It helped us become more compliant. It eased their job, and it was, I'll say, a minor change that we could adapt into their processes, and it's not constant. Um, I don't have to change them daily. I can switch over
Yeah.
to a new department and focus on them next, and then come back to them in 6 months and throw another
with
thing at them.
reconciliation innovation.
Exactly, exactly. With
Yeah, I think even internally at Kodaris, I think that's an important point. The process is incredibly important. Defined process. That's how you scale. That's how you keep your sanity. We have this rule internally. If you want to do something different, propose the change. Propose why is better or what problem it's going to solve. Talk with the group or the team about it, and then we'll decide to implement if it makes sense. But if you have a simple change management process like that, so if that change to the accountants gets shot down for 5 reasons why it won't work, well, okay, that's fine, because we have to go back and we have to work how would we solve those change in the process to make sure we're compliant, right? It's interesting, and that's why though I talk about our scale and things and everything we're developing, but it's a subject matter experts, which is why we have a CFO who's got 24 years in distribution and accounting, right? Sometimes I'm like, Jack, no, why would we do that? Like, I know accounting, like we don't have to do it that way. Like, but it's good debate, right? It's about
Yep.
changing, is there another way to be compliant? Because there's multiple ways, right? Anyway, it's cool, but subject matter experts in their areas are always fun to work with because they're gonna put the dose of sanity on, right? I'm responsible for this, but is there a better way to get to X without how we're getting to X today is always the fun part and then to get them excited about and see their job become easier is really the satisfying part to us IT folks, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it rarely does IT ever get thanked, right?
Yeah.
IT for the longest period of time is this like dark closet room with people that only show up when something's broken, and it's always IT's fault. They're the ones that are rolling out new patches to Microsoft somehow, even though it's not their responsibility and it broke. So when we do get those wins, when we do get to implement something that goes smoothly and makes a difference, and they call to thank us instead of to tell us something's broken, those are the wins that we look forward to uh, in the IT group because they don't come as often as we would like, but they can come more often when we do look towards solutions that are innovating instead of stagnating. So otherwise, we do get stuck in that. Thanks for asking, but no, we can't do anything about that. So having anything that helps us not say no is huge. Parksite has lots of tenets. One of the tenets that we kind of follow from a cultural standpoint is find a way to say yes. And that was a really impactful one for me because for a long time, the answer was no. And that was the end of the conversation. Now everything is focused on, okay, no, but this is how we could get to a yes. We need a new software, a technological or a technology change or a process change, but it's never no. It's no, but here's how. Or no, it's no right now, but maybe later. So that changes that mindset to continually look for a better way of doing it just because it can't be done today.
Yeah, I always say to customers, I'll never tell you no. And I tell my team, don't tell customers no. It's time and it's money. Now it's a business decision. Is it worth it?
Hmm.
Right? Um, because to your point of saying no, it's we don't want to do it. Well, we know typically if the if there was enough profit involved or enough whatever, people do a lot of things, right? So
Absolutely.
But you can't do everything, and everything's not worth it. Of everything you dream up's not worth it ROI wise either. But to your point, it should be a business decision.
Yep.
The business should be able to make and value those decisions, not what people want to do or not do. Especially for large companies trying to innovate, because they might do a 5-year ROI and say, it sounds crazy, but this is be totally worth it, right? And I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always like, well, that'd be really hard, like, or that'd be a huge project, but I mean, I don't know if it's worth it.
I remember the first time I started submitting requests to Kodaris during the customer payment portal. And users are constantly requesting, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we update this? And in the past, it's so easy to say no by just saying, I'm going to send it to the software provider, and I know they're going to say no. Like they're just going to say no, and then I'm not the bad guy.
You're hot potatoing it.
They get to be the bad guy, and I start sending these requests, and it's just like progression, working on, to do. And it's like, wait, they're doing all these things. I have to be a lot more careful now and pick and choose what I request. So we started actually having to vet what our people are asking for and really know why they want it, instead of just like, well, I know it can't be done. I'll send it off to the software provider, let them shoot it down, and give them the bad news. Now I have to be the one that questions, okay, is there a business value to this? Like, does it make sense to request? Does it affect more than just you? Before I give it to Tony, because it's likely Tony's going to either ask those questions or just say yes.
Thanks for joining, Logan. I think hopefully this has been helpful for other distributors and the community. It's cool stuff. I'm looking forward to innovating with Parksite, and Parksite's great to work with, by the way. I love the Parksite team, and working with all of you. We love working with innovators and people who are thinking ahead. So it's been cool, and look forward to lots of other stuff. I know we got several projects, so it's always fun.
Absolutely. Kodaris makes it easy to work. It makes it easy. The only thing difficult is picking and choosing which of the different modules and implementations we want to do.
Just tell your boss you need an unlimited budget. That's
I need unlimited people is what it is. To roll out all the cool things that we can do, I need more people and time in the day.
Yeah.
But
If you figure out how to get that, let me know. More time in the day.
Will do.
If you've been enjoying this podcast so far, take a moment and like and subscribe, or leave us a comment if you have any feedback. We'd love to hear it. Thank you for joining us this week on the Kodaris Community Show. We'll see you back next time.